My name is Ava Reynolds. I'm 32. And I didn't realize my life was about to split cleanly in two until cold takeout went untouched on the coffee table and a pauseed Netflix episode became the quiet witness to everything falling apart. It was a Wednesday, the safest day of the week, predictable, harmless, the kind of night you trust. I was sitting across from Daniel, my boyfriend of 5 years, plastic forks scraping against the bottom of our favorite Thai containers. The TV glowed behind him, some half-watched show frozen mid-scene like it didn't care what was about to happen. Then he cleared his throat. I think I need a break. No yelling, no build-up, no warning. Just dropped there between bites, casual and strangely polite, like he was asking to change the channel. For a second, my body didn't react. My fingers stayed wrapped around the fork. My shoulders didn't tense. I didn't even blink. I've built my life to be steady. I own my home. I have a solid career in IT. I don't panic easily. So when Daniel said those words, the shock lasted exactly half a second. Then clarity set in. A break. That word always sounds softer than what it really means. I see, I said, placing my fork down carefully. If that's what you need. Relief flashed across his face, quick, uncontrolled. He hadn't expected calm. He'd expected tears, negotiation, fear. But what he didn't expect was what came next. This is my house, I continued evenly. So if you need space, you'll need to pack your things and figure out where you're staying. The way he blinked at me, you'd think I'd suggested he move to another country. Wait, seriously? He asked. Yes, I replied, seriously. What did he expect? For me to sit here while he found himself? To be his safety net while he decided if I was still enough? If someone is unsure about you, you don't wait around hoping they'll come back convinced. You let them go. To his credit, Daniel didn't argue much. Maybe he thought I'd fight for him. Beg. Ask what I did wrong. But I wasn't about to beg anyone to stay in my life. By the end of the night, he had packed a suitcase and called his sister to pick him up. He lingered at the door, looking like he wanted to say something. I opened it and held it there. If someone wants to leave, you don't make it harder. You don't trap them. You let them walk. When the house finally went quiet, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the half-eaten pad thai on the table. It didn't feel dramatic. It felt irritating. I had built a life where Daniel had every opportunity to be happy, and instead of talking to me, he chose the easiest exit, a break. The next morning, I boxed up the few things he'd left behind. Toiletries, a couple of hoodies he always stole, his dog-eared copy of The Old Man and the Sea. If he wanted his things back, he could ask. I wasn't chasing anyone. Life without Daniel didn't collapse. I still woke up at 6 a.m., still went to the gym, still worked my projects. The house was quieter, but quieter wasn't lonely. What bothered me wasn't that he left. It was how easily he did. And that was the first sign I'd been the only one taking us seriously. The funny thing is, I wasn't the one hunting for updates. I wasn't checking Daniel's social media. I wasn't calling mutual friends. I wasn't driving past places we used to go, hoping to accidentally see him. I was doing what I always did, living my life on schedule, one calm step at a time. But life has a way of dragging the truth to your doorstep anyway. In a close-knit neighborhood, news spreads the way smoke does. Quiet at first, then suddenly everywhere. I didn't go around telling people, hey, Daniel asked for a break, so I made him leave. But apparently Daniel didn't have the same sense of privacy. It started small. A week after he left, my phone buzzed with a text from Jordan, one of our mutual friends. Hey, Ava. Hope you're doing okay. I ran into Daniel at the marina last night. He seemed different. Different. I stared at that word longer than I wanted to admit. Different how? Happier? Lighter? Guilty? Or free? I didn't ask. I didn't want to give it weight. I didn't even reply right away. Let him be different. He wasn't my problem anymore. But then the next call came. Lauren. The kind of friend who never calls unless she has something important. Ava, she started, voice hesitant. That pause told me everything. I wasn't sure if I should tell you this, she said. And I actually closed my eyes, because those words always come right before someone hands you a piece of pain you didn't ask for. Tell me what, I said evenly. I saw Daniel at the tavern last night, she continued. He was with some girl. They looked kind of cozy. Cozy. That word sank into my chest like a cold coin. Not because I missed him, not because I wanted him back, but because it confirmed what I had suspected from the moment he said break. Breaks aren't usually about finding yourself. They're about finding out if you can do better. And if the answer is no, you come crawling back. I forced my tone to stay neutral. Okay. Lauren exhaled like she'd been holding her breath. You're okay? I'm fine, I said, and I meant it, mostly. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, staring at the sink, listening to the refrigerator hum. 5 years. And within a week, he was already out there. Warm lights, cold beer, a new girl leaning in close. It wasn't heartbreak that hit me. It was something sharper. Disrespect. Over the next few days, it kept happening. Not directly from Daniel, never directly. He was too careful for that. But the world kept delivering little reports like unwanted packages. My neighbor Janice caught me outside while I was dragging the trash bin to the curb. Janice was one of those women who treated gossip like a hobby and concern like a disguise. "Ava," she called, leaning over her fence with her eyes bright. "You hear about Daniel?" I didn't look at her right away. I adjusted the lid on the bin like it mattered. "No," I said. "Should I?" Janice lowered her voice dramatically, like she was about to reveal government secrets. "I saw him jogging yesterday morning," she whispered, "with a girl, a new one. I haven't seen her around here before." I gave her a small shrug. "Okay." Janice blinked. "That's all you've got?" "It doesn't matter to me," I said, and kept walking. But I could feel her eyes burning into my back, trying to decide if I was truly unbothered or just pretending. The truth was, I was unbothered about the women. What bothered me was the pattern. Because every time someone mentioned him with a new girl, it became harder to believe he'd asked for a break because he was confused. No, he wasn't confused. He was curious. And curiosity has a very specific look when it's dressed up in excuses. I didn't ask for these updates. But it's like when someone says, "Don't think about a pink elephant," and suddenly that's all your brain can see. I didn't want to picture Daniel with someone else. But people kept painting the picture for me, one detail at a time. Then came the most irritating moment of all. Not a text, not a phone call. Instagram. One night, I opened the app to check something completely unrelated. Work messages, a gym post, anything. And there he was. Not because I searched him, not because I stalked. The algorithm did what it does, shoved him into my feed like a cruel coincidence. It was a story someone tagged him in. Daniel was laughing in the background of a photo, sitting across from a girl I didn't recognize. They were at some trendy restaurant downtown, one of those places Daniel used to roll his eyes at when I suggested it. The lighting was warm. The drinks looked expensive. The vibe was curated. And the girl across from him had that effortless, I'm the main character energy. Perfect hair, glossy lips, hand placed lightly near his wrist like she belonged there. Daniel looked relaxed, like he didn't have a care in the world. I felt my mouth go tight. Not jealousy, disappointment. 5 years together, and his first instinct after leaving wasn't reflection. It was performance. A new audience, a new spotlight. Like I didn't exist. I closed the app so fast my thumb ached. I told myself it didn't matter. And maybe it didn't. But the universe wasn't done. A few nights later, I got a call from Rachel, a mutual friend I trusted more than most. She didn't waste time. "So, Daniel told me you two are taking a break," she said, her voice flat. "But he made it sound like it was your idea." I actually laughed, sharp and humorless. "My idea?" "That's what he's telling people," she continued. "That you needed space. That you pushed him out." The laugh died in my throat. I leaned against my kitchen counter and stared at the wall. Of course. Of course, he wasn't just out there auditioning new women. He was also rewriting the story to make himself look clean. To make me look like the unstable one. I spoke slowly, carefully. "Rachel, let me be clear. Daniel asked for the break, not me. I told him he couldn't live in my house while he figured out whether he wanted me." Rachel sighed. "Yeah, I figured. It didn't sound like you." Something hot and quiet settled behind my ribs. Not rage, not heartbreak. Something colder. Understanding. Daniel wasn't just testing the grass on the other side. He was making sure he could come back if it wasn't greener. And he needed the world to believe I was the one who caused the split. So he wouldn't look like the villain when he returned. That's what people like him do. They don't leave cleanly. They leave a door cracked open, just in case. Over the next week, the updates kept trickling in. Different bar, different girl, different rumor. And each one did something unexpected. It didn't weaken me. It strengthened me. Because the more I heard, the more certain I became. I hadn't lost someone loyal. I had removed someone unstable. One night, my best friend Tessa came over with a bottle of wine and the kind of expression that said she'd been holding back her opinions all week. She sat on my couch, looked around the living room, and said, "It feels calmer in here." I poured the wine and gave her a dry look, because the chaos moved out. Tessa snorted, then leaned forward. "Ava, I need you to promise me something." "What?" "If he comes back," she said, eyes hard, "don't let him talk his way into your sympathy." I didn't answer right away, because the truth was, I already knew what was coming. Breaks always end one of two ways. They either become a breakup, or they become a test of how much disrespect you're willing to swallow to keep someone. And Daniel? Daniel wasn't the kind of man who asked for a break to heal. He asked for a break to shop. So when my phone buzzed late one night, nearly 3 weeks after he walked out, and I saw his name light up the screen, I didn't feel panic. I didn't feel hope. I felt something like grim confirmation. A message. Just 4 words. Can we meet up? No hello, no apology, no how are you holding up? Just a request like I was still his option. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I set the phone down on the table, letting it sit there like a live wire. Because I already knew. This wasn't going to be closure. This was going to be him trying to reopen a door I'd already locked. And the question wasn't whether he'd try to come back. The question was, I didn't reply to Daniel's message right away. Not because I was torn, not because I needed time to think, but because I refused to let him believe I was waiting. When I finally picked up my phone, it was hours later. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that no longer felt empty, just settled. When and where, I typed. His response came almost instantly. The park, the one downtown. Tomorrow afternoon? Of course it was that park. The one we used to pretend was our escape from real life. The place where we talked about vacations we never took and futures we assumed would just happen. I agreed. Not because I missed him, but because I wanted to hear exactly how he planned to explain away everything I already knew. I arrived 10 minutes early. Not out of eagerness, but strategy. I didn't want him sitting there first, rehearsing lines, imagining he had the upper hand. I grabbed a coffee from the stand nearby and sat on a bench near the fountain, watching the water rise and fall in a steady rhythm. Control. When Daniel finally appeared, I noticed 2 things immediately. First, he looked like he'd been thinking too hard about this. Hair neatly styled, clean jacket. That careful, curated look people wear when they want forgiveness but don't know how to ask for it. Second, he looked smaller. Not physically, emotionally. The confidence he'd walked out of my house with was gone. In its place was something unsure, something that didn't quite know how to approach me anymore. He spotted me, hesitated for half a second, then waved awkwardly. I didn't stand up. I didn't smile. I leaned back on the bench and took a sip of my coffee. If he wanted this conversation, he could earn it. Hey, he said, sitting down a little too carefully. Thanks for meeting me. I said nothing. I just raised an eyebrow and waited. The silence stretched longer than he expected. I could see it in the way he shifted, cleared his throat. I've been doing a lot of thinking, he finally started. Of course he had. I realized I was really lost when I asked for the break, he continued. I didn't want to drag you down while I sorted through my feelings. That one almost made me laugh. Drag me down? My life hadn't wobbled for a second after he left. If anything, it had stabilized. I stayed quiet, letting him talk himself deeper into the hole. I just needed time, he said, voice earnest, to see if I could be the best version of myself. For us. For us. He said it like everything he'd done since leaving had been in service of our relationship. I tilted my head slightly. And how did that time work out for you? The question caught him off guard. He blinked, clearly expecting sympathy, not interrogation. It was enlightening, he said slowly. I realized I was taking you for granted, that I didn't appreciate everything you brought into my life. I nodded once. Go on. And, he added, lowering his voice, I made some mistakes during the break. Mistakes. Not choices, not decisions. Mistakes. Like everything that happened had just slipped. I heard about your mistakes, I said calmly. People talk, Daniel. His face flushed. I didn't mean for it to happen like that, he rushed. I just thought I needed to see if I was missing something. I exhaled slowly. You weren't missing anything, I said. You had stability. You had loyalty. You had me. You walked away from that to see if you could find better. He swallowed hard. That's not fair. It's accurate, I cut in. And you don't get to rewrite it now. He stared at the ground for a moment, then looked back at me, eyes glassy. I know I messed up, he said quietly, but I realize now how much I care about you. I want us to work things out. I want to come home. There it was. Not I love you, not I'm sorry. I want to come home. Like my life was a place he could step back into once the outside world disappointed him. I leaned back on the bench, crossed my arms, and met his gaze. No. The word landed harder than I expected it to. He blinked. No. That's right, I said. You wanted a break. You got one. But you don't get to come back just because reality didn't live up to your expectations. He tried to argue, to explain, to plead. I stood up before he could finish. Take care of yourself, Daniel, I said evenly, and I walked away. I didn't look back. Didn't wait to see if he followed me. because the truth was, the decision had already been made weeks ago when he packed that suitcase and stepped out of my door. That meeting wasn't the end of us. It was confirmation. And as I walked to my car, I felt something lift inside my chest. Not victory. Relief. I thought that was it. I truly did. After walking away from Daniel at the park, I felt like I'd sealed the chapter shut, tucked it neatly into the past where it belonged. No loose ends, no unanswered questions, just clarity. For the first time in weeks, my sleep was deep and uninterrupted. My thoughts felt orderly again. I wasn't wondering what he was doing. I wasn't imagining alternate endings. I was done. So when a text came in from a number I didn't recognize nearly 6 weeks after Daniel and I had last spoken, I almost ignored it. "Hi, Ava. This might be strange, but my name is Claire. I think we need to talk. It's about Daniel." I stared at the screen, my thumb hovering. Claire. I didn't know a Claire personally, but the name slid into place too easily. One of the women. My first instinct was annoyance. I had no interest in being dragged back into Daniel's orbit through someone else's guilt or curiosity. But there was something about the tone, measured, hesitant, that stopped me from deleting it outright. "What is this about?" I replied. Her response came quickly. "I don't want drama. I just think you deserve to know the truth. Could we meet?" Against my better judgment, I agreed. Not because I needed closure, but because I wanted to make sure there wasn't anything left for Daniel to use against me. Any story, any half-truth I hadn't heard yet. We met at a quiet cafe downtown the next afternoon. Claire was already there when I arrived, seated at a corner table, hands wrapped tightly around a mug she wasn't drinking from. She looked normal. Early 30s, polished but not flashy. The kind of woman who probably didn't enjoy chaos and certainly didn't look like someone who thrived on stealing other people's partners. That alone told me a lot. "Ava?" she asked when she saw me. I nodded and he sat down across from her. "You wanted to talk." She swallowed and nodded. "Yes, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." "I wasn't sure either," I said honestly. "So, let's skip the build-up." She exhaled, relieved. "I was seeing Daniel," she said. "I guess, technically, I was his ex-girlfriend, from before you. We reconnected after you two took a break." I kept my expression neutral. "That doesn't surprise me," I said. Her shoulders sagged slightly, like she'd been bracing for anger and didn't know what to do with calm.